Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Duran, or that's Duran. I'm Genaro. Welcome back, everybody. If you're watching this right now, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us some comments so we have some topics that you'd like us to cover, even if it's a certain player that you want us to talk about. Pretty sure that me and Duran here has been covering a lot of football, so we can expand a whole episode on somebody.
We'll make up a topic to add in that player.
Exactly. So, like we did last episode, we touched over the AFC South. Today, we're stepping into the AFC North, where that is the Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, before we get that started, though, Duran said he had some news.
Yep, a little bit of news to cover today. We got two players that aren't really happy with their contract or their situation. The first guy is Chris Jones, the defensive tackle from Kansas City. He came out this year and threatened to not play without getting a new contract. We know he was one of the best defensive tackles in the league last year. He was on a Super Bowl team, and I know he just wants to cash out right now. So one thing that I did notice is he referenced Le'Veon Bell in that tweet, who ultimately I think made a bad decision sitting out that game. I mean, he might have got 1 year in health, but he ended up losing like $13 or $14 million, and I'm pretty sure the Pittsburgh Steelers offered him a better contract than he signed with the Jets. But, you can never get back those years of earning, especially for a running back. But, yeah, Chris Jones, one of those guys that's not too happy. What do you think about that?
I mean, I wouldn't sit out for the whole year. That's for sure. I mean, I understand that he may want to get healthy, but he shouldn't be unhealthy and happy with the team. You're on a Super Bowl winning team. If you could sacrifice some dough to win another ring, I definitely would. In the long run, I mean, that's what it's all about. So, I was trying to look for the tweet exactly to read off exactly what he says, but I can't find it. I don't know if it's been deleted since. But
it was a reply. He replied to someone, and he said, like, better believe I won't play this whole year. And then he said, like, I learned from @Le'Veon Bell. So he was replying back to someone. But, yeah, he shouldn't be unhappy with the team. But one guy that is unhappy with his team right now is Njoku, the tight end from Cleveland. It just came out this week. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, said that he is officially requesting a trade. And I don't know if it's because they added some tight end help during free agency with Austin Hooper. But, he's still on the team. He's still under contract. I think he should stay there, compete for the job. And we know he's a freak athlete. I mean, a little bit of the football stuff seemed to pass him up, but I think he just has the talent to develop into a better pass catcher and run blocker eventually. But, I just don't really like this players requesting a trade when their contract still isn't up and when they still haven't proven anything. I mean, I know guys like AB, Jamal Adams, Jalen Ramsey, those are all guys that requested, but I just feel like they actually put in the work and prove that they're one of the top in the league before they started doing that stuff. So as we could see, it's starting to trickle down to a little bit of the other players.
Yeah, that's we'll see. I mean, not everybody kind of gets lucky. It was a little bit different for when Trent Williams sat out. I know he was very unhappy with the staff. As far as the medical staff, I mean, I think that's completely different. But if you're healthy and you're ready to play and your contracts aren't up, I mean, you signed it. You know what I mean? You need to kind of stick to it or try to renegotiate it.
And they're so happy when they sign those deals, and then a year or two later, they're not that happy and they want a new deal. So,
as soon as somebody signs for more money, they're like, okay, well, I want this money now.
So,
I understand football's the thing, but
I don't think Njoku's going anywhere. We'll see. But I know they like to run two tight end sets, and they plan on having him be a part of the offense one way or another. A little bit more news. The supplemental draft got canceled this year, and I can't even remember the last guy that got picked from the supplemental draft that ended up doing anything.
Was Josh
Terrell
Gordon?
Pryor. Who?
Was Josh Gordon?
Josh Gordon.
Supplemental draft?
He might have been. I'm not sure, but I was thinking Terrell Pryor. I know he definitely was, but
Good.
I just think they had to cancel it this year, especially with COVID and all the stuff that's happening. I just think there would have been a ton of applicants, especially from guys that are seniors that don't think they're going to play this year, or things like that. I think it just would have been one of those outlier years where a ton of people would have ended up applying for that. So supplemental draft is canceled this year. 2 preseason games also got canceled, and I hate seeing this. I think this is just the beginning. Well, first it started with the Hall of Fame game. Now it's 2 preseason games. I could see next being now there's no preseason. The next being now they're pushing the regular season back, and then regular season. I'm not very optimistic about this, but I just don't see how they can keep moving forward playing games with all the stuff that's happening right now.
Yeah. To touch back on the supplemental draft, yeah, Terrell Pryor was there. Ahmad Brooks, and
Okay.
then Josh Gordon. Yeah, he was out of the supplemental draft. And then wasn't Landon Collins, or was he an undrafted free agent?
Lyle Collins.
Lyle Collins.
Yeah, he
Okay,
was
maybe.
undrafted free agent. Like the night of the draft, his agent put out a thing saying that he won't sign with any team that selects him. So he ended up being undrafted. But
Gotcha.
yeah, Josh Gordon probably was the last one that has really made an impact. But yeah, that's about it for the news.
Gotcha. Yeah, to touch back on that, man, I really hope that this is the end of it, but we'll definitely see. All right. So to go into back to our segment that we've been kind of continue on, our favorite draft choices from 2017, 18 to 19. So that starts us off in the AFC North, and that goes with the Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens. All right.
All right. In 2019, I know you liked Marquise Brown. He was picked number 25, round 1. Jalen Ferguson, I did like as well, the D end at La Tech. Wasn't a big fan of Miles Borkin. Justice Hill, I liked him, and I liked him even more when he got picked by the Ravens, but he definitely wasn't on my radar until he actually got picked.
Yeah, I didn't really know Justice Hill in college. I don't remember looking at much at him, but as he got into the NFL, I looked back and he's a pretty electric player. I think he's a good third down back for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that backfield is pretty.
Yeah, they're
Is actually
stacked.
pretty packed right now. They're stacked right there. I mean,
They might be the
they,
number one. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, they just picked up J.K. Dobbins. They
Yep.
still got Ingram back there. I mean, it's pretty good right there. 2018, I wasn't a big fan of Hayden Hurst. Lamar Jackson, I did like, but I mean, I admit that he wasn't my favorite prospects. I mean, he is. To look at him now, this kid's electrifying. He's getting better every single year.
Yep.
I think he just needs to work on his accuracy and his touch a little bit more, and he'll definitely be there. Orlando Brown, I did like the tackle out of Oklahoma. As a Texas fan, I got to see him play a lot in the Big 12, and this kid was a stud. He came from that family bloodline, and he actually went to his dad's former team with the Baltimore Ravens. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I did like Kenny Young, the linebacker out of UCLA. But
Yep.
overall, my favorite draft choices actually came in 2017, and that was actually Marlon Humphrey, the round 1, number 16th pick from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And Marlon Humphrey, I thought this kid was a stud in 2017. He was actually the second rated cornerback I had, and he was behind Marshawn Lattimore. And Marshawn Lattimore actually went 5 picks ahead of him to the New Orleans Saints at Ohio State. And then I had Alabama. Alabama's Marlon Humphrey there. This kid was locked down. This kid was a stud for sure. He had 26 total tackles, 36 overall. He didn't have any sacks, but he had 5 pass deflections, 2 interceptions, and one of those was taken back to the house, as well as a fumble recovery as well. He didn't really get picked on a lot because of how locked down he was, but I mean, watching this kid, it's kind of hard to get film on cornerbacks and to see, but seeing some 101s and seeing him work on the off season with the strength and conditioning coach is pretty fun to see. I know he definitely has a track background, and he's a speedster, and he's even one of the top cornerbacks in today's NFL. So we'll definitely see. He's still continuing to grow. He's still continuing to be a solid piece of that always tough Ravens defense. Let's see here. Any kind of accolades he has? 2019, he was first team. He was on the All-Pro team as well as a Pro Bowl selection. So.
Yep.
Oh, and he was actually just awarded with the 5th round option. So I think that's always a plus.
Yeah, he deserved that, definitely. He was going to be my honorable mention. He was actually the number 6th cornerback on my list. 2017 just had a stacked class that year. My number 1 was Marshawn Lattimore, like yours. But then I had Garyon Conley, Chidobe Awuzie, Tre'Davious White, and one guy that I kind of hate to admit I had him above him was Kevin King. So I think Marlon Humphrey might have been a little bit better. But, I still had an early 2nd round grade on him. He played pretty good with aggression. He tested well at the combine, and he had that bloodline once again. His dad was in the NFL, and those are just all things I like to see in prospects coming out. And looking back, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's the number 7th ranked cornerback in this draft class, according to PFF. One guy that snuck in there that I didn't really have my eye on was Kenny Moore. I was a fan of Desmond King. He was ahead of him, but guys like Adoree Jackson, Tre'Davious White, Chidobe Awuzie, and Marshawn Lattimore have all ranked ahead of him. So that was a good draft class for cornerbacks. Those are all solid guys. So for my number 1 player, I went with their 2019 first-round pick, Marquise Brown, the wide receiver from Oklahoma. And like you mentioned before, we all know the impact that Lamar Jackson has made for this team, but I didn't really see it coming. So Marquise Brown was actually my number 1 ranked wide receiver that year. The only other first rounder I had was DK Metcalf, but I think the reason I had Marquise Brown above him was because I just loved his quick twitch. He was very fast. He had a great versatile route tree, and he could operate at every level. He separated with ease, and, just that speed was always maintained throughout all points of his route. I noticed he also had multiple moves to beat press coverage. So when guys would come up and get in his face, he can move inside, outside. He had good hand technique and seemed to get around it almost every time. And for a wide receiver, all those things usually add up to success in the NFL. Since he's been in, we know he battled that foot injury last year, and even when he did play, it just seemed like he was never 100%. So during this offseason, he got a screw removed from his foot, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad sign. I think it's a good thing. Just shows that he's recovering and getting back on track. But I hope he could stay healthy, because I'm actually not really a fan of this wide receiver core outside of him. And I like him in the tight ends, but, other than that, they got guys that are mostly unproven. Miles Boykins, James Prochet, Devin Duvernay. So someone has to step up and help out Lamar Jackson and take some attention off of Marquise Brown. But When you're going through their draft picks, I actually noticed in 2018, their draft pick, they took Hayden Hurst in the first round and then came back with Mark Andrews in the third round. And maybe if those two were switched, I might have liked it a little more. As we know, Hayden Hurst isn't even on the team anymore. He's up, or he went to the Falcons. But I like Mark Andrews. I think he's a solid player and a good tight end. So, yeah, that was those are my two guys. Marquise Brown, Marlon Humphrey was the honorable mention.
Yeah, I know when we're getting ready for the draft of 2019, every time I came over, you always had some Marquise Brown tape going on. You're showing just to kind of prove to me that why he's your number one. So it was definitely fun to see. I mean, I hated to see him playing against Texas, but the kid's a stud. And I think he found the right system with the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I think the only negative I had against him were the his size, and to me, I just kind of try to embrace that that's the new NFL. These undersized guys are coming in and just showing off. So, yeah, Marquise Brown.
All right, and now let's go on to the next team here, and we got the Cincinnati Bengals. My favorite draft choice for them actually came in 2018, but touched on other years before I get to my favorite one. Let's go 2017. John Ross. I know he had a great combine. He obviously broke the record. Wasn't a huge fan of him. Like you said about Marquise Brown, I was kind of concerned about his size, and now it's injuries that are kind of plaguing him. Me and you both like Joe Mixon.
Oh, yeah, Joe Mixon. But with John Ross, I don't know if he had a great combine. I know he broke the record for the fastest 40 and stuff, but if you remember, he pulled up on that run afterwards, and he just sat out the rest of the combine. So he did what he had to do, which was run fast and put that on tape. But, that's about all he did at the combine. But, yeah, Joe Mixon, love that pick. Jordan Willis, he wasn't bad. Actually, Jordan Willis and Carl Lawson, I think I had them both around the same area, and perfect for a mid-round pick. Other than that, that's about it for the 2017 draft.
Okay. Let's see here. I know I said 2018 was my favorite, so let's go down to 2019. Jonah Williams. I liked Jonah Williams a lot. I know he was getting a lot of shit about him having short arms and everything, but one guy that stepped up for him too was actually Joe Staley. Joe Staley has the same amount of reaches him as well. I think it's like 34, 33 inch arms. But this kid is definitely a stud. He was very versatile on the line. Drew Sample, wasn't a big fan of Drew Sample. And Jermaine Pratt, I was kind of on the fence about. I don't know. I needed to see a little bit more. Ryan Finley, wasn't a Ryan Finley fan at all. I definitely thought he was a Glennon clone. Let's see here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I like Rodney Anderson, but I mean, his injury history was just too nuts.
Yeah.
So that moves on to our 2018, where my favorite one was. I like Jesse Bates. I like Jesse Bates a lot. Mark Walton, I liked him, the running back out of Miami, the U. Malik Jefferson, definitely a fun watch over there at Texas. But overall, one guy. I forgot Billy Price. Actually, I wasn't a big Billy Price fan out of Ohio State, to be honest. I don't think he was worth that first round, but maybe he can prove me wrong. We'll see. But my favorite overall, one guy that I was actually kind of surprised he fell down to the third, being that the draft class, the four DNs in that year in 2018 wasn't really the strongest. I actually really, really like Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard out of Ohio State, the defensive end. Definitely, comes from a great coach over there, Larry Johnson. He's, definitely, we see the Ohio State defensive line now. I mean, it's just a factory of just all pros and just straight studs. A couple of DNs that went ahead of him. Let's see here. In the first round, let's see here. Marcus Davenport. and he still has yet to kind of prove his round one worth. He had a couple of games that spread out here and there.
Especially they traded the next year's first round pick to move up and get him. I know I had Davenport as, a top 5 defensive end, but when they traded that second first rounder for him, that's when I was like, oof, I don't know if he could live up to that.
Yeah, and I still think he hasn't. Another
No,
guy that went ahead
definitely.
of him was Breland Speaks, round 2 to Kansas City. Let's see here. Anybody else worth noting? Try Taquan Lewis, round 2 to the Colts. Is actually his teammate. Chad Thomas to the Browns, and then at pick 77 in the third round. That's when somehow got off the board over there in Cincinnati Bengals. He's the clear starter on the right side, playing next to Geno Atkins, so he's definitely get a lot of help there. This kid was a stud coming out of Ohio State. Like I said, watching him play, he was definitely getting down in the grid of things, and he had tons of different moves. He was looking like a pro already. Before coming out, he had 27 solo tackles, 15 assisted, brings it to 42 total tackles, 13 and a half tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and he had 2 forced fumbles. I'm pretty sure I can't find my notes on 2018 at the second. Talk to my producer about that, but pretty sure I had round 2 grade on Sam Hubbard, and for him to go and round 3 is definitely a steal. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
too
have him right
sure.
here, second round grade. Only Bradley
Yeah,
Chubb and Harold Landry I had above him.
gotcha. But they had Bradley Chubb and Landry at outside linebackers. One thing that I did see even on when passing downs, I mean, Sam Hubbard can kick down. So that's one thing I was kind of looking on, because I saw that that's what the 49ers did with a couple of our guys, with Buckner and Armstead and whatnot. So pretty interesting to see if Sam Hubbard becomes available in free agency, who's going to swoop him up, or if they're going to try to re-sign him. We'll see. But yeah, that was my favorite pick for the Cincinnati Bengals the past 3 years.
Yeah, I have Hubbard written down here just because it seems to me like every year they take like a mid-round edge rusher that I like. A guy that I have a third or fourth round grade on, but they're still one of my favorites in that range. And I don't know if they've quite hit yet. In 2017, they took 2 of them, Jordan Willis and Carl Lawson. Jordan Willis isn't even on the team anymore. He's on the Jets. He only has 3 career sacks. Carl Lawson, he's still on the team with 14 sacks. He had 8.5 as a rookie, so that was pretty impressive. Then 2018, as you mentioned, Sam Hubbard, he's still on the team, 14 career sacks. And then 2019, fourth rounder, Rennell Wren, who is still on the team but didn't have 1 sack last year. So all those guys I had in that range, and I thought they were good picks at the time, but we'll see who really steps it up out of that group of guys. My favorite pick that the Cincinnati Bengals have made since 2017 was Joe Mixon. He was taken in the second round out of Oklahoma, and we all knew that he was one of the best running backs in this draft, but he had those off the field issues. He didn't get to compete at the combine and show what he had there. But, I remember the rumors that the Bengals were talking to him, outside of the facility and things like that. But that this year was actually a pretty stacked class. And the order that I had it was Fournette, Dalvin Cook, McCaffrey, Kamara, then Mixon. So, Mixon, if he would have been able to compete in the combine, maybe I would have switched it around a little bit more there, because he was really productive at Oklahoma. He had over 3,000 yards and 23 touchdowns in 2 years. And I just remember he had a really nice jump cut, and he was also able to run between the tackles. So to me, that was, good transition to the NFL. On top of that, he had pass catching skills, so that automatically made him a 3-down back in my book. So the only negatives I had on him besides the off the field stuff, was his fumble rate. And now that he's in the NFL, I think he's cleared that up. I think he's like a top 7 to 10 running back in the league probably. And his potential could probably be higher if he was on a better team with a better offensive line. I know Pro Football Focus ranked his offensive line last year number 30 out of 32. So, hopefully that changes. They got their new quarterback now. Maybe they'll add some protection for him, and that'll help out Joe Mixon in the meantime. But this is another guy where, hey, if he gets on another team with a good offensive line, I say watch out, because to me, I think he's a real 3-down back with, some elite skills.
Yeah, he's definitely well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him for sure coming out. All right.
Yeah, that's all I have for Cincinnati.
All right, we're done with Cincy. Go and check that one off. We're going down to the Cleveland Brownies. I'm pretty sure we're going to agree here as well.
Yeah.
My favorite draft choice came in 2017.
Yep.
So let's go skip that one for now. We'll touch back on it. 2018. I liked Baker Mayfield coming out. I liked his attitude. As far as him being the first pick overall, I get it. I understand. He's a quarterback, Heisman winner, and everything.
I actually didn't see that one coming. To me, I remember Baker snuck in there a little bit later on in the draft process. Yeah, like you said, there was always his attitude concerns and stuff that I didn't think was a big deal, but that was the thing that people really hung on to. But I remember it was actually Sam Darnold who I thought was going to go there, because the owner was sitting down with his parents at his pro day, and I'll admit it, I fell for it, and I thought it was a wrap. It just seemed like they were really hitting it off, and they had the number 1 pick that year, and I thought it was going to be Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think me and you both did. Like I was saying, I kind of get it that they went to – I knew they were going to go quarterback first round overall, but, I didn't see it being Baker Mayfield. I did like him as a prospect, but he wasn't even my favorite prospect that they had. I like Denzel Ward a lot. I like Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb looked really good. Antonio Callaway. I was excited when he got picked in the 4th round, because I'm pretty sure it was Mike Mayock who brought him to my attention. Might have been somebody else who's as soon as he got picked, they said they just picked a first-round talent in the 4th round because he was such a shithead at Florida.
Yep.
Brings us 2019. I like Greedy Williams. Sheldrick Redwine. I did like him a lot. I thought that was a good pick. If Mac Wilson returns to the former he used to be at Alabama before getting hurt, I definitely think he's going to be a stud. Taki. I like Taki, but wasn't necessarily.
I think Greedy was the only guy I liked in this draft.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But
let's see here. In 2017, this is actually where my favorite one got picked. Let's go work our bottom to the top, see if anybody stands out. No.
Ogunjobi. He's probably the first guy in the 3rd round. He wasn't bad. Then going up, we know Deshaun Kaiser. But Njoku's still on the team. He's the one that's a little bit upset right now and wants out. Jabril Peppers has been traded to the Giants. He was in that OBJ deal. And, of course, I think we're agreeing on this. The best draft pick they've had in the last 3 years is Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Myles Garrett for sure. Since stepping the field over there at A&M, this kid was, a stud. He, in only 9 games, he broke the Jadeveon Clowney's SEC sack record of 8. I know his junior year he kind of suffered from a high ankle sprain against Arkansas, and he didn't appear in 2 games, which kind of knocked down his sack totals. Let's see here. In 2014, he had 11 sacks. 2015, he had 11 and a half. And 2016, he only had 8.5. Brings him to a total of 31 total sacks in 3 years. 2 forced fumbles. He had 33 tackles. 15 of those were for loss. Overall, in his 3 years over there at A&M, he had 47 tackles for loss, 149 tackles, and he's only played 34 games. Oh man, this kid's still a stud. He was All-American 2 times over there, 2015 and 16. All the SEC team. He won the Bill Willis Award in 2015. And his freshman year in 2014, he was the second team All SEC team. Let's see here. In 2018, he made the second team All Pro team, and he also got a Pro Bowl nod in 2018. I know that he's been into some scuffles or whatnot about being suspended in 2019, where I think that's where he hit Myles Garrett not Myles. He hit Mason Rudolph with his helmet. He considered that foolish and out of character for him. And this guy's always been kind of a hothead, but you watched him on Hard Knocks and whatnot. He actually sits down and watch poetry or listens to poetry and writes poetry. Yeah, he seems like a level-headed guy, but when out there on the field, he just hits a switch, and this guy's relentless. This guy's just straight monster. So I know he was reinstated in February, and in 2000, in April 27th, that's where the Browns exercised the 5th-year option on Myles Garrett. So, we'll definitely see how this guy does. Hopefully he gets his head on straight with the new coaching staff there, and the new defensive coordinator, Joe Woods, can straighten him out.
Yeah, I think, Garrett, he is obviously the best defensive player, if not the best player in this draft. I think he deserved that number 1 overall pick. He was productive, like you mentioned, all his stats at A&M. But what was most impressive to me was he was 3rd in quarterback pressures. And, that's one thing that can translate to the NFL. He just dominated at the combine. He's a freak athlete, has ideal size. He ran a 4.5 40 at that size. So, to me, he was just a can't miss type of dude. The only negative I had on him was that he did miss those 3 games due to an injury, but so far he's lived up to the hype. He has 30 sacks and 35 starts in the NFL, and I'm projecting 2020 to be his best year yet. And, a lot of that has to do with him just developing into a great player, but, they got a pretty solid secondary there at Cleveland. They got Grant Delpit this year, Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward, and, making those quarterbacks hold the ball for an extra second or two might just help out Garrett and, have him continue on that all-pro path. So I expect a lot from him. I mean, he's the number 1 overall pick, and, a lot of pressure is on those guys. So Myles Garrett so far living up to the hype. Honorable mention, I'm going with Denzel Ward. 2018 first-round pick. He was picked after Baker Mayfield. He's the cornerback out of Ohio State. And I did like him, but he was my number 2 cornerback that year. I actually had Jair Alexander above him. But Denzel Ward was still worthy of early first-round pick. On film, he was super smooth. He had a good burst and change of direction. He was a bit undersized, but he shined at the combine, and I don't really mind that in cornerbacks. I mean, I'd rather have them with elite speed and athleticism and a little undersized than the opposite, being too big and slower without athleticism. So that was fine with me. My main concern with him coming out of Ohio State was his interception production, but I think that had a lot to do with people just not wanting to target him that much. And he only had 2 interceptions in college, but I think he's put that to rest since entering into the NFL. He's had 5 interceptions the past 2 years, and on top of that, 22 pass deflections. So I still think he might have been taken a little bit early, but it was a position of need for them, and I can't really argue that. The only player I see that could have been taken instead of him was Quentin Nelson. He was definitely the best player available. And, right now they might wish they have had him, especially with the development of Baker Mayfield. But, overall, I like Denzel Ward. He's been a solid pro, and I think he's going to continue on that path. Did you have an honorable mention?
No, I mean, I probably would have agreed with you as far as Denzel Ward. I also like Nick Chubb a lot. Nick Chubb coming out of that Georgia offense, just a stud.
Yeah, that's who I was also going to mention, Nick Chubb. He was, I think he was the number 1 running back before his injury of his class. And I know he kind of fell off after that, and then he decided to come back for his senior year, which to me, I just don't like. Every year is valuable for running backs, so I think he should have just declared and went to the NFL. But maybe he made the right decision because he ended up on the Browns. He took the job from Carlos Hyde after a couple weeks, and since then has just showed that he could be one of the best backs in the league. PFF ranked him as the number 1 back in the league in 2019, and he was picked in the 2nd round. I think that's just great value in the way that you should draft running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else on the Brownies before we move to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Nope, that's it.
All right, so goes on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm thinking that we have the same player here. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'm going to go ahead and bet that we do.
Yeah.
Mine came in 2017. Did yours as well?
Yes. First rounder.
Well, gotcha. All right, so 2019, touch over their draft choices real quick. I like Devin Bush. I liked him a lot.
Me too.
Didn't like his attire at the draft, but I did like him a
crazy.
lot. Became more of a Deontay Johnson fan after he got drafted. I did like him, but after he gets selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers, I know that he probably was good because that's one team that knows how to draft receivers. Justin Lane, we both like Justin Lane out of Michigan State.
Yep.
Isaiah Buggs, I liked him in the late round for sure. Let's see, that goes down to 2018. Terrell Edmonds was a surprise pick for me. Wasn't a big fan of him. Safety out of Tech, didn't have him in the first round whatsoever. Let's see, Mason Rudolph, didn't really like him either. Jalen Samuels, I liked him, and then definitely seeing him move back to the backfield was a pretty interesting move. Marcus Allen, I did like him coming out of Penn State. Let's see, Okafor wasn't really. I don't know. Didn't get to watch him a lot over there at West Michigan. Didn't like Mason Rudolph, but I did like James Washington, the receiver at Oklahoma State. His teammate actually got chosen after too with Mason Rudolph. That's funny.
Yeah, but, I wasn't that big of a James Washington fan. I remember that he was a deep threat. I remember coming out, but I just felt like his size and athleticism wasn't going to really translate that to the NFL.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that for sure. But I liked him only because I thought he was built more like a running back, and I thought his routes were a little bit cleaner than what most said. That goes to our 2017. Joshua Dobbs, I liked him because of his smarts mainly. He went to school to be, rocket scientist. I know you weren't really high on him. James Conner, how can you not love this kid's story? Coming out of University of Pittsburgh too, and being a stud, and he's kind of standing out now. Cameron Sutton, wasn't really high on him. 3rd round choice is probably where I had him. I like Juju a lot. I still do to this day. I think he's definitely. I think he's a little bit underrated, I would say.
I had Juju as my number 9 wide receiver that year. That was the year I had Corey Davis number 1. But guys like Mike Williams, Curtis Samuel, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Zay Jones was a miss, but I had all those guys ranked ahead of him.
So if you knew where they were going to go, would that kind of change things for you? Like if you knew that Juju was going to go to the Steelers, would you be more
I mean, production
willing to
wise,
put?
yeah, I might have went with that, but no, the way I kind of look at the film and the players, I think I'd keep them the same. Like even if I go back right now and you look at, you know, Juju was playing at USC, but you go back and you look at Zay Jones's East Carolina tape, he was killing it at East Carolina. Cooper Kupp was
Yeah,
one of those guys. He was Eastern Washington. He was under the radar until the Senior Bowl happened, and just every day he was killing it at the Senior Bowl. His route running and everything was top notch. Curtis Samuel, I was a big fan of. Chris Godwin and Mike Williams and Corey Davis. I think just film wise, if any of those guys would have went to Pittsburgh, I think that they could have done the same thing. So we'll see with Juju.
gotcha. Yeah, 100%. So that brings us to the number one. My favorite overall is T.J. Watt.
Of course.
Definitely was a big fan. Got to kind of get my eyes on him a little bit earlier, being that he does have that bloodline in the NFL with his brothers in the NFL, with Derek and JJ's. He didn't start his career at Wisconsin as a defensive end or a linebacker. I don't know if you knew that, but he started his collegiate career as a tight end. He came in there, he got injured, and then he was coming back from injury in 2015. That's where the head coach went ahead and went to him and said, "You're changing positions. We want you at outside linebacker." Took him about a year or two to kind of get comfortably situated into the new defensive role. 2015 was his first season there at outside linebacker. He had 7 combined tackles, 3 assisted. See here, he didn't have any sacks. Then he had 2 pass deflections, and then 2016 careers when he put in that off-season work and he kind of stuck his head down and dedicated himself to his position, and that's where he took off. He had 63 combined tackles, 38. Let's see here. He had 38 total tackles. 25 of those were assisted. He had 11 and a half sacks, 1 interception, returned for 17 yards, and a touchdown, pass deflection, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. He definitely came into the draft as one of the top, ranked edge rushers that year, and I was a big fan of him. I know you were too. I know that's the year actually where you guys got Taco, right?
Yeah, that was a
I
good
know
pick.
that you were. Yeah, I know that you were pushing really, really hard for T.J. Watt. You kind of let down. I mean, understandably. I mean, this guy was. You guys cut Taco, right?
Yeah, cut him. Miami picked him up, and he's not even on their team anymore.
Yeah, he's not even on that team anymore. I'm pretty sure he's actually. I don't know. I think he went to the Jets. Oh, he's with the Chiefs now.
Yeah, I just know I watched a lot of TJ Watt film that year, and yeah, he definitely was one of my favorites. I had a first round grade on him, of course, but he was my number 3 edge rusher. I had him behind 2 guys, Myles Garrett and Derek Barnett. So he definitely would have been my pick there. I think he would have been my number 2 behind Myles Garrett, but unfortunately, I kind of pegged him as that tweener, 3-4 outside linebacker type of dude. He weighed in at only 143 pounds. So to me, in the NFL, that's just really not going to cut it, especially if you're playing a 4-3 defensive end. You want those guys, 265 and bigger. So I kind of feared that he'd struggle on the edge. And on top of that, he only had 1 year as a starter to prove that he could play that. But it sucks I had Barnett ahead of him because looking back on it, Watt did have the all-pro bloodline with his brother, JJ, of course, and he had great technique and a motor that just didn't stop. I should have noticed that he's probably going to put on more weight as he got into the NFL just with his work ethic and things like that. But, I think the Steelers actually took him in the perfect spot. It was great value, especially at that outside linebacker role. And this might have been like the single pick that was made that really made me kind of scout guys with a broader eye and not really peg them into those holes. So, I just embraced that new undersized speed NFL because TJ Watt just clearly showed it on every snap at Wisconsin. And, each year in the NFL, he's got better and better. And he even took PFF's #1 edge rusher title last year. And once again, just great pick for the Steelers. And I think he's just going to continue on this path.
Gotcha. All right. You got anything else to say besides before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just two more honorable mention guys that I had. Of course,
right.
You mentioned a little bit, 2019 first-round pick Devin Bush. He was a linebacker from Michigan. He was one of my favorite linebackers in this draft class. I kept going. He was back and forth, neck and neck with Devin White. So, he just had great speed. He ran a 4.40, and I really liked his read and reaction. It just seemed like it was instant. And right here in my notes from that year, I have he's a top 10 pick, and he was picked at exactly the 10th spot. So that was perfect there. And the second guy I want to touch on is Justin Lane. He was the third-round cornerback from Michigan State, and he was my #5 cornerback in that draft. I had a second-round grade on him. They got him in the third, so I thought that was a pretty good value. He was a former wide receiver, and he just played that press man coverage pretty damn well. He had good mirroring skills, and he got his hand on the ball a lot, which I just like that. So I know he's still growing at the position. I think he gets beat on inside routes a lot, so he needs to also clean up his tackling. But those are two things that I think they could work on and he can improve on. But he's still a developing player, and I think he'll end up being pretty solid for a third-round pick. So, yeah, that wraps it up for the Steelers for me.
Gotcha. Well, again, if you're watching this right now, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and stay tuned for next week where we'll be stepping on to the NFC side of things, and we'll be covering the South and the North first, and we'll go into the East and the West next after that. But, yeah, you guys stay safe. You guys be safe out there on this 4th of July. Be smart, make good decisions. Anything else?
No, just stay tuned. We cover everything football related, and you can check back at our previous videos that, probably cover your favorite teams and players. So give it a look.
All right. You guys have a good one.
All right. Later.